So I've been working on this front wheel, and I've got the suspension off, and it actually just looks like it's just packed full of dirt, the side that wasn't attached to this brace. So I think that'll be all right. All I'm gonna have to do is try and get a vice grip on here and twist this out and put a new stud in there. So that, I'm not looking forward to that, because steel into aluminum, and it's old and it's dirty, everything's working against me. But as you can see, the speedometer drive works. This is actually part of the cable. It's just a bunch of wound, like spring steel, basically, so it can flex and still turn. So that still works, and actually the brake still works too, but it's awful rough. So, and I'm having a lot of trouble getting this brake disc out. But I mean, it turns, it stops. The Speedo drive works, so there's hope for this front wheel to be reused. So I'll see if I can get it apart a little more. So there was lots of penetrating spray and hammers and heat and swearing, but I got it out. So this is the brake assembly for the front, and for those of you that don't really know much about motorcycles, it's a drum brake. What's more conventional today is disc brakes, where you've got this piece of metal spinning, you've got a caliper back there, and it just pinches it with hydraulic pressure to slow you down. And then there's a drum brake, which was more common on older stuff. But how this works is you've got these two pads here which ride on a drum, and when I pull this lever, you can see it spreads them apart. So instead of a whole bunch of surface area clamping on it, when these pads are new, there's actually only a small area that's actually grabbing, and the more they wear out, the better they get, up to a point. So these look like they're worn in pretty well. It looks like it's touching from about here to here. It's dirty and it's a little rusty, but there's plenty of material left on here. So I think I can just sand these lightly, clean them up, sand them lightly, and reuse them, because everything in here is intact and complete. It's just dirty. So if we look down here, it looks like the braking surface is actually this aluminum hub. That's not true. There's this steel ring inside here that it rides on, and one of the problems with these disc brakes in old bikes is if they get too far out of adjustment or something falls apart, you can see that there's kind of a ridge here on this metal right here. You see where it's, well, not clean, but a lighter color of dirt where that brake pad was riding. Then there's this ridge. What happens is when this gets really bad is the brake pad gets stuck behind that ridge, and you can't pull it apart because that ridge is too tall. But this looks, other than being dirty, it looks good. I mean, the bearings all seem okay. I'll have to take them out and clean them, that sort of thing, but I think this is all going to be serviceable. So another thing I need to check is if the spokes are tight or not. And the way I learned to do it is just by ear. There's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're doing spokes on a wheel. So what happens is if you tighten it up this half versus that half, like if this half is too tight, it'll move the center of your axle away from center of the wheel, and then you get balancing problems. It goes down the road trying to bounce all over. Another thing you can do is if you tighten this side too tight versus the other side, because there are laces that go to both sides of the hub, what you can do is pull the hub out of the center of the wheel, which is bad. I might just have someone else do this because I am absolutely not an expert on it. You know, I can check for a loose spoke and tighten it, but I don't have the equipment to make sure a wheel's running straight and true. A lot of the time you can just set them up on an axle on jack stands and spin it and see. But how you tell by ear if you've got a loose one? Well, that one I can wiggle that. That is absolutely loose. But okay, here's a good example. Tight, loose. The tighter it is, the higher pitched noise it's going to make. So if it's a dull thud like that, you got a loose one. That's a little loose, little loose. That one's tight. So I'm gonna have to go through and make sure all these are okay. And again, like I said, I'll probably just have someone else do it because I don't want to mess it up, and I have not had enough practice. I just know that it's easy to mess up, and that's how you find loose ones. And there are, look at that, plenty of loose ones in there. And I'm sure the rear wheel's the same, but I'm not sure that I'm even going to use this rear wheel on this project, so I'm probably just going to set this to the side and forget about it. But the front wheel looks usable to me. So this totally sucked. Getting this tire off was really difficult because this tire is so old and it spent so much time outside that it's just rock hard. You can see it just totally destroyed the sidewall. The minute I started wrenching on it, or prying on it, it just opened up all these little cracks. This is what happens when tires get old. And the problem is when they're on these rims for so long, they can corrode the aluminum. They can rust stuff out. They can rust the spokes out. And it's just rock hard and impossible to get off of there. And this is so old I can't find a date code on it. More modern tires have date codes for sure. I don't know what they did back in the day with off-road tires or just motorcycle tires in general. But on this tire, on my CRF 250L, you can see right there in the middle of the screen, it says 4615. And that means this tire was made in the 46th week of 2015. That's how you know how old it is. This tire over here, I can't find that, but like I said, they might not have ever done that on off-road tires way back last time this had new tires on it, but it doesn't matter. It's a crusty old tire that's getting thrown away, so whatever. Now if we look at this rim, I mean it obviously had moisture in it, but there's the rim lock. I talked about that in an earlier episode. What that does is it pulls the bead of the rim, or the bead of the tire here, hard up against the rim so that tire can't rotate on the rim. So that's what that looks like. And now there's a lot of rust on these spokes, but hopefully, yeah, I see it's none up there, so this is just where it was wet. And I'm guessing that tire was partially in the dirt, or that was just on the bottom. That's where all the water got in, that sort of thing. You see it's rusty right around those holes because that was where water intrusion happened. So I think this rim will be fine. We'll wire brush it. I'll probably put a little penetrating spray on these just to help inhibit the rust a little more, clean it up. I think it's a usable rim. So and then again, the spokes, I have not talked to anyone about lacing them yet, relacing it or tightening up these existing ones, because really even if these are all bad, that's not a big deal to replace. The most difficult thing about replacing spokes and these little, I don't know the specific name for these little nuts, spoke nipples, whatever they are. I mean, you just got to remember how it's laced. So, like, number them, like where, like for example, you could number this one number 1, and then where it goes up here, label that number 1 inside there, and then 2, and etc. But the guys that are really good can just look at a rim and go, oh, that's how it's laced, okay, and take all of them off, drop new spokes in, and then relace it. So that's what the inside looks like, and I think we'll be fine to use it. One of the pieces that actually came off of here that you're not seeing is this strip of rubber here, and what that strip of rubber is for is to lay in the bottom here and protect the tube from these, so these don't wear a hole into the tube. But yeah, that was very unpleasant, but I got it done, so there we go. The stud that was in the bottom of that fork came out actually pretty easy. Well, I just used a slip joint pliers on it and it turned right out, so I got super lucky there. Now sourcing one of these is probably going to be difficult. I might end up having to make one, but we'll see.